presenter, we will wait for the other participants. So after 5 minutes, I will start class. All right.
Okay.
I think we should start class. Okay. So anyone new is in this class? I think Mr. Khalid, are you a newcomer? Please introduce yourself.
Hi, no, I'm not a newcomer. I have already attended the previous classes. Actually, I had some issues, so I rejoined again this time.
All right, Khalid. I got it. So now I'm going to start the class. So first of all, this is the sixth lecture of the International Diploma in Environmental Engineering, and the I'm going to present Module 6, and the title of the Module 6 is Environmental Impact Assessment. So I want to tell you that so far we have covered the 5 lectures, and now I'm going to discuss the sixth one, which is Environmental Impact Assessment. And moving towards the subtopic of the today's lecture, that we have 3 subtopics like EIA process and the regulations and the environmental risk assessment. And the third one is mitigation strategy and environmental management plans. So EIA is basically very important for any project. So, and every institute, every uh, um, organization should conduct the EIA before initiation of the project. So basically, it helps to evaluate that how these projects implement and how these projects can impact on our national surrounding before putting them into the action. EIA basically is very important for knowing the environmental consequences of the plans, policies, or the actual project prior to the decision to move forward with the proposed action. And I want to say that the term environmental impact assessment is usually used when applied to the actual project by individuals. And these are basically strategic environmental assessments to implement some policies, laws, which are imposed by the government actually to make the environment better. So, have you idea? Have you got the idea what is EIA? What is environmental impact assessment?
Yes,
Anyone?
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, we got it.
Okay, so I will tell you that basically the environmental impact assessment is basically a method for not just specified in the EIA regulation. These are the guidelines for the preparation and reviewing of the environmental reports. However, a general procedure that includes impact identification, baseline data collection, prediction of the hazards that may come or that may result for conducting that project, that specific industry. For instance, if any industry wants to be structured in any area, so they have to go for the environmental impact assessment, and they must have idea that what type of impact can be faced by the residential area. So for that purpose, the EIA predict the possible hazards, and it is very important for the social health as well as economic and fiscal impacts also. So moving towards the next one, these guidelines basically for the preparation and reviewing of the environmental report, indicating that EIA shall consider environmental, social, health, and economic impacts. So these guidelines includes checklists, matrices, networks, overlays, and GIS. So you people have an idea that GIS play a significant role in environmental science, and through a software we can predict any hazards in any area. So what is basically EIA? EIA is basically a process, so it must be a transparent so that public can access the data. And these type of assessment must contain the information with certainty, and the public participation is a mandatory step in EIA. And the next is practicability, which is very important because you can't present any approach which is practically impossible. So these type of assessment must be practical, and again in this type of assessment must be flexible, because sometimes you can provide the alternatives and you can use that alternative, but the project can still can work. And apart from that, it must be cost effective, and you have to be very careful about the budget as well. And the all the stakeholder are very honest, because it shows their credibility and the accountability as well, because the accountability means that all the stakeholders involved in EIA, such as project proponents, consultants, laws regulators, and reviewers, these are very, you can say they're very professional, and they should be a very honest person. And apart from that, the accountability basically refers to the public mechanism of the evaluation. They can access the record, they can check the record. So that means that EIA must be credible and accountable. So this basically in some countries there are the institute known as Environmental Protection Agency. So the Environmental Protection Agency is responsible for conducting the EIAs for any project prior to their conduction or prior to their installation. So they can propose, or you can say that they can predict the possible hazards which can be faced by the local people, or by the soil, air, or any environment as well. So these are the three pillars, which is environmental, social, and economic. So these pillars must be taken into consideration by the EIA, because we have to think like we have to use the concept of sustainability, because we want to think about the next generations. So the next is the objectives of EIA. What should be the main objectives of the EIA? Before learning the process of EIA, I want to tell you that what are the main objectives of the EIA. So first is comprehensive evaluation. Basically, EIA is a systematically access that potentially environmental impacts of proposed projects, providing decision makers with the crucial information to balance the economic development goals with the environmental concerns. And the second one is the informed decision making. By quantifying the environmental consequences, such as pollution, or you can say that habitat destruction, deforestation, EIA enables policymakers to make informed decisions that minimize the negative impact on the environment while they're still promoting the economic growth. Because every country wants that their GDP must increase and their economic conditions flourish day by day. So we have to be very concerned about the economics as well. And the next is the stakeholder engagements. So the EIA must involve all the stakeholders. So what are the stakeholders in EIA? Anybody from the class?
Yes, we have the regulatory, the legal requirements and state requirements, ma'am. The organization itself.
Yes, Rosando. The stakeholders in AI are very important and it includes the public as well. So you want to speak more? Please tell me more about what are the possible stakeholders in EIA.
For the stakeholders, ma'am, these are the applicable organization who will be implementing this environmental impact assessment, and also the statutory and legal agencies within the country who will be the one monitoring and controlling these regulations. Did you hear me, ma'am?
Rosando, thank you for your participation. I really like when the students participate in the class. It will also encourage me because I want that students speak maximum in my class. So basically, EIA must involve all the stakeholders and it includes local community and all the environmental advocates in decision-making process. And this participatory approach ensures that diverse perspective which are considered that the environmental interests are safeguarded by all the stakeholders. And the next is the mitigation measures. EIA recommends the mitigation measures and also tells us the alternatives approaches to minimize the environmental harms. So basically, this is the process which want economic growth maximum, and this approach offers the least hazards to the public as well. So basically, this approach is uh, gives you the mitigation measures and the alternative approaches to minimize the environmental harms. For instance, you can take the example like it may suggest the use of the cleaner technologies or the preservation of the ecosystems or the ecological preservation in sensitive areas, and it also allows us to fulfill the sustainable practices while keep the concern with the economic conditions as well. And the last one is the comprehensive evaluation. So by integrating the environmental considerations into the project design, EIA promotes the sustainable development that balances the economic, environment, and social priorities at the same time. And evaluation is very important because even when the project has been installed, if you want to install any industry in any area, so you have to go through the process of EIA, and then after the installation of that project, there must be a check and balance and evaluation and monitoring of that project, either they that the predicted possible hazards have been faced by the residential areas or not. So moving towards the next one. So these are the basically objective of the EIA. So moving towards the process of EIA. So there are 9 main steps in the EIA. The first one is screening, second one is scoping, third one is impact analysis, fourth one is the mitigation measures, and the fifth one is the reporting. Sixth one is the review of that report. Seventh step is the decision making. Eighth step is the monitoring and compliances. And the ninth one is the post-project analysis. Don't worry, I will tell you one by one in detail. So you people must have an idea that what is EIA. So being an environmental engineer, at the end of the class, you will be capable to do the EIA process, or EIA, you will able to do or conduct EIA of any project by just keeping or following these steps into your reports. You will be able to write the EIA report after this class. So whenever you want to write an EIA report on any project, you must have to put all these 9 steps into your report. So you put these headings in the document. So in each and every heading, you can relate that local area with the possible hazards. Like if that area has a low geochemistry, like their water table is is on the top of the soil, so that means you can't install the landfills there, because the water table is very low, because like after 2 to 3 feet you will have the groundwater, so that land is not feasible for the designing or installation of the landfills. All right, students. So this lecture is very, very important for any environmental sciences scientist or any environmental engineer. So the first step is screening. So moving towards the first step. So basically, screening. Screening is basically a required step, and it is conducted by Environmental Protection Agency of any country at federal level or the provisional level as well. And the step screening is basically the preparation of the environmental impact assessments, which are not open to all the stakeholders, because at this stage some consultants or the some top management of EIA is involved in the process, and they must follow some sort of guidelines which contains the checklists, some environmental parameters that can be used to aid the screening process. So first step is the screening, and the federal level or the provisional level, these type of the authorities are responsible to follow certain environmental standards and environmental parameters, so that the you can say that they are comparing that area and the design of that project to the local area, that either that project is feasible to install it that area or not. So first step is you have to do the screening, and but at this stage there will be not any kind of public involvement. All right. So some officers are the top management at federal level, or the officers at the environmental protection agencies are allowed to access the data at this stage. All right. So moving towards the next stage, which is the scoping. Scoping is also a required step, and the basic, what are the foundation of the scoping? The basis for the determining the scope of the EIA derived from the sectoral guidelines, which include a checklist on likely impacts and the mitigation measures for the several activities. So, what are the steps for the scoping? So, you have, if you are preparing a EIA report, so you must have to cover these steps in the scoping, which is the second step of the EIA. This the scoping includes the objective and description of the proposal, and the second one is the what type of the proposal it is, the context of the proposal, what are the constraints and what are the possible alternatives. For instance, if any leather industry has been installed in any area, so the possible alternatives is they have to install the wastewater treatment, or they have to be very far away from the residential area. So these type of approaches are okay. All right, if they don't have the wastewater treatment, or if they don't have any advanced type of facilities, so they must have some sort of alternatives. The next one is what type of the issues can be faced by the public. So this is the scope of the AIA and the public involvement. You can say that you can involve the public, like you can involve the public by solving or by giving them any questionnaire. So after that filling of that questionnaire, people have an idea as an environmental engineer that what is the thinking of the public. So next is the timetable. So at which time you have to do the EIA report. I already told you that prior to the project, you have to conduct the EIA before installation of the project. So moving towards the next step, which is impact analysis. So in impact analysis, you people have three main things. First is data collection. Second one is the prediction of the impacts, and the third one is the assessment of the significance. So you can get the baseline environmental data and the which project. So for example, which have that data must be according to the project. So although it's very difficult to get the baseline data, but it's the job of the environmental engineer. This is your job to get the baseline data that will be available. The next one is the prediction of the impacts. That in this step, you have to analyze the potential environmental changes which can be possible as a result of conduction of that particular object. The next one is the assessment of the significance, which basically evaluate the magnitude that how much these project can possibly impose the significant impacts on the environment or on the human as well. So this is the impact analysis approach. Moving towards the next one, which is mitigation measures. So in mitigation measures, you have to keep in mind these three things. That first one, impact reduction. So reduction is basically identifying the strategies to avoid, to minimize, or compensate for the adverse impacts. If any impacts, for example, soil pollution or the air pollution, become the cause of that project, so they have to provide some sort of compensation to the environment or to the local people as well. And the next one is implementation plan. So before implementing that project, the details and the actions needs to be taken for for the preparing that project. You have to present the mitigation measures prior to the installation of that project. The last one is the monitoring requirement, which basically establish the procedures to monitor the effectiveness of the mitigation measures. That either this type of the mitigation measures or the precautionary measures are effective or not. So mitigation monitoring is also important step. The next step in EIA is the reporting. So after the getting all the data, after the checking the impact analysis, you have to report to the seniors. So the first one is EIA report preparation, in which you have to compile all the data, all the analysis, and recommend a report that either this project has a potential to install in that environment or install in that particular area or not. So this is totally your decision. So your job is very important. All right, students, your job is very important because you are the person who accept or reject any project. So you must have an idea that how your job is uh, critical in as an environmental engineer, because you are the honor of the public health. You can say that because you if you take the decision that I okay, all right, that here I want to tell you that the political involvement is a big factor, because due to the political pressure, some environmental scientists accept the some dangerous projects, which basically and their consequences are faced by the public. So I recommend that my students should be honest and they report the real picture of the installation of that project. So in reporting, you have to compile all the data. And the next one is public disclosure. You can share the EIA report with all the stakeholders, which include the public, the local community, the farmers, the environmental scientists, the reviewers, and the journalists as well. These are all the stakeholders of the EIA. Next one is feedback integration, which basically incorporate the feedback from all the stakeholders into the final report. So you can go and interview them individually with your team, or you can just give them a questionnaire and you can just get the hard copies of the questionnaire and fulfill it from the public. Or the next option will be you can rotate the online questionnaire as well, but already that depend upon the target audience. If the target audience has the level of education, so if the target audience has a high level of education, you can rotate the online questionnaire as well. But if you are going to install any project in the village, So environmental engineering, because I am taking all my students as environmental engineers. So if you want to install any industry in the village, so you have to go there and you have to interview them individually, because in village people are not illiterate, so they don't have enough educations. So these are very simple people. So again, that depend on you. You are the decision makers. So the next is post project analysis. Post project analysis basically check a balance, and it basically evaluation of the mitigations, or it is basically a compliance monitoring and the reporting. So the first step is the implementation of the mitigation. It basically ensures that the mitigation measures are carried out as planned, because things are different in table talk and things are different in the paper, but things are different on practical approaches. So if any environmental engineer has done the duty, so the next step is the evaluation. If the project has been installed, either they are following the environmental standards, or either they have been they install that type of modern techniques to clean the environment, or they are just doing the fake promises to the environmental engineers. So this is a very important step in which you have to do the evaluation and monitoring after the installation of that project or any industry. So the next one is the monitoring. So any environmental scientist have to check the regular to that project, which basically ensure that the project adheres to the environmental standards, and the continuous reporting should be conducted, and the what type of environmental performances has been presenting by that industry. So every industry must have a environmental advisor, so that type of advisor must be invited in meetings. So and they should present their condition of the environmental standards which are followed in their particular industry. So here the EIA process has been completed. And if your students have any ambiguity regarding the EIA process, or regarding the objective or what is the purpose of the EIA, so please do ask. If you students have any ambiguity, please do tell me.
No, ma'am, it's all
I will
clear right now.
proceed with the next. So here is very important thing, that what is the difference between IEE and EIA? So this is not, this topic has been not included in the lecture, but I want to tell my students that what is EIA and what is IEE. So IE is basically initial environmental examination, which is basically a preliminary environmental review. And the second one is the full environmental assessment. EIA is basically a long procedure, while the IEA is basically a short procedure, and that is for the small scale project, while the EIA is for the large scale project. And the IEE basically requires the low cost project, and the EIA requires high cost projects. The projects which has huge budget, they will go for the EIA. And the next step is project with no significant adverse impacts, and the projects with significant adverse impacts on the environment or on the human health. So the next is the limitation of the environmental impact assessment. So basically, there are the limitations of the EIA process, major limitation. So the first one is the time consuming. The EIA process, which is sometimes excessively focused on scientific investigation, which takes time and cause the project delays. So this is the one of the drawback of the EIA. And the second one is the limited public participation. EIA regulation is basically required the public uh, participation, because this is the public participation is a mandatory step in EIA, but it should be meaningful because it affects the communities and the stakeholders, but they have the lack of interest in anything because they want to improve their life, but they don't want to improve the environment. So always there will be a limited public participation. And the next one is the every time any environmental engineer want to do the EIA, they will face this is one of the biggest drawback, which is inadequate baseline data. So EIA often relies on the baseline data to assess the environmental impact accurately. But what happens? The baseline data may be incompleted or the outdated, and which leading to the inaccuracies in impact assessment. And the fourth one, which is political interference. There have been instances of the political interference in the EIA process where the decisions may be affected, and because you people have an idea that what a sort of the environmental, that political interference must be in the EIA. So there have been instances of political interference in the EIA process where the decisions may be affected, and more equitable balance between the development and environmental preservation. So there should be independent monitoring and reviewing should be included in EIA. And the second one is the utilizing the technology to enhance the data collection and analysis. You have to be invest for in comprehensive data collection and the analysis method to ensure the accurate baseline data and robust the impact assessment. This may involve the conducting through the environmental surveys and utilizing the advanced technologies such as remote sensing and GIS. The next one is the transparency and the public participation, which basically increase the transparency in the EIA process by making the project documents and the decision easily accessible to the public. And it basically encouraged the active participation of all the stakeholders, including local communities, NGOs, experts, through the public consultation and the hearings and the feedback mechanism. The next one is the continuous improvement and learning, which is basically fostering a culture of continuous improvement and learning within the EIA community by sharing the best practices, lessons learned, and the success stories as well. You can tell them the successful stories that how that these type of developed countries clean their environment. So this is the improvement of the EIA process. So the next topic of the today's lecture is the environmental risk assessment. It is basically a process that evaluate the likelihood or probability that produce the adverse effects which may occur to the environmental value as a result of the human activities. That is formal procedure for identifying and estimating the risk of the environmental damages. ERA, which is Environmental Risk Assessment, is a procedure which is triggered prior to a significant decision affecting the environment, and it can be broken into the three broad stages. For instance, first stage is the preparation. Second one is involving the collection of the data, and the third one is the examination, the relevant background information, and establishing the focus for the assessment. And after that, you will be able to conduct the assessment and interpreting that results. You can report it and you can apply these results for the environmental risk assessment. So this is the entire ERA process. So the first step is the identification of the hazards. You have to identify what types of the problem has been formulated in that type of area. Second is the hazard categorization, that either it's a chronic or acute hazards, or either this hazards impact the environment, other that hazards produce the impacts to the human health or to the children, or this type of hazards affecting the children or the adults. So this is one of the characterization, or you can say that this industry can produce the adverse impact on the soil. So this is also one of the characterization, because you are differentiating that soil is also one element of the environment and air is another. So you are characterizing that this particular project contaminating the soil. Third one is exposure characterization, that what type of the people are exposing to that particular hazard. For instance, that if you are working, if any person is working in mining, so that person is prone to the respiratory disease. So it's mean that you are segregating the person on the basis of the exposure of the that specific hazards. The first step is the risk characterization, that you are going to tell the people, or you are going to report in the you are going to write in the report that what type of risk, that people at the high risk due to that particular hazard. And the next one is the management of these type of the hazards, that what type of the hazards are the results of that particular activity, and what should be the managing strategies to solve that environmental hazard. The next one is the overall risk evaluation, and you have to give the conclusion, which basically overall risk management, including the post-market environmental monitoring. So this is the entire flow sheet, or the flow diagram of the environmental impact assessment. So you people have an idea that what is environmental risk assessment? Please do tell me.
We have in our own template, ma'am, we are doing because as part of our management system for ISO 14001. So we are doing also this particular environmental risk assessment in our organization.
Thank you, Rosendo. I really like that you are participating 10 by 10 in the class, and I'm really happy. And I want that other students that please do participate in the class. Okay, so moving towards the next slide, which is basically what are the limitation of the environmental risk assessment. That basically ARA will clarify the risk to the environment from a decision, but it will not be able to set an acceptable threshold of the risk. And it is basically the report or the assessment which determine the acceptable risk is an issue of the risk management, and the risk assessment is a basis for the judgments about impact, but not for the judgments on the acceptability of the impacts. And the decision maker must choose a desired or acceptable level of the risk. And the environmental risk assessment has the following limitation. The first one is the risk tolerance is relative to the individuals and the institutions, and having the differing perceptions of the tolerance and the acceptance of the risk. And everyone is not aware about the risk which become the result of any activity. So that depend upon the level of the individuals, that how much they are accepting and how much they are tolerant to that specific hazard. So basically what you have to do, this slide is particular for the environmental engineers, that what decision planning are the assessments process in the ERA intended for. The answer is the, you have to identify the decision process that would benefit from the ERA information. And the next question is for you, that what are the environmental values may be at the risk. So preparing a preliminary list of what may be at the risk is in the environment. You have to make a list in which you can wrote that what type of the risk become the cause of that particular hazard, and what the potential data, for example, indicators of the valued environmental components, assessment methods, and the resources are available to apply the environmental risk assessments. So for that, you have to confirm the scope and the scale of the items for the risk assessment, and you have to identify the data inputs, assessment methods, and the presentation opportunities. You have to identify the resources required for the ERA, expertise, personal times, and the funding. So you will be able that what you have to do in any condition, So I just find this type of questions for you, and you will have the answer of these. So I hope that you people will be able to write an EIA report and the ERA report as well. So the third topic of the today's presentation is the mitigation strategies and the environmental management plans. So whenever there is a risk or whenever there is environmental hazards, so there will be mitigation strategies or there will be environmental management plans. So EMP, which is Environmental Management Plan, consists of the set of mitigation, monitoring, and the institutional measures, which are needs to be taken during the implementation and operating to eliminate the adverse environmental and the social impacts, offset them, or reduce them to acceptable levels. So these type of the mitigation measures. So you have to fulfill three steps. The one is mitigation, the second one is monitoring, and the third one is the institutional measures. So the management plan are essential, which is for the EIA reports. To prepare a management plan, the EIA design them, identify the set of responses to potentially adverse impact. And it basically determine the requirement for ensuring that those responses are made effectively and in a time manner. And these type of the management plans should describe the means for meeting those requirements, which are more specifically for the environmental protection management, and that must includes those type of environmental management plans which are proposed to mitigate the environment or the mitigate the proper hazards. So environmental management plans identifies the feasible and the cost-effective measures that may reduce the potentially significant adverse environmental impact to acceptable level. And the plan basically includes the compensatory measures. If the mitigation measures are not feasible, what you have to do? You have to provide the alternatives, or you have to provide the compensatory measures. So these mitigation measures, if these are not feasible or the cost effective or these are not sufficient, you have to provide the compensatory approach. Specifically, the environmental management plans identifies and summarize all the anticipated significant adverse environmental impact, including those involving the indigenous people or involuntary resettlement, which describe with the technical details, and the each mitigation measures include the type of the impact to which it relate and the condition under which is required. For example, continuous or in the event of the contingency. Together with the design, equipment description, that what sort of equipment has been used in that type of factory which has been installed. So these are the management plans. So if any activity causes any environmental hazards, so they have to provide such type of designs, such type of equipments, and the operating procedures which are satisfying to safeguard the environment. And the next is they have to estimate any potential environmental impact of these measures and provide the linkage with any other mitigation plans. So these are for the involuntary resettlements and indigenous people or the cultural property required for the project. So next step is in the environmental management is they have to be very specific. They have to provide the technical details, and they have to provide the monitoring measures in any environmental management plans, which must include the parameters like methods to use the sampling collection, frequency of the measurements, detection limits where appropriate, and the definition of the thresholds that will signal the need for the corrective actions, which can be monitored and reported throughout the whole procedure, which ensures the early detection of the condition that necessitates particular mitigation measures, and which furnish the information on the progress and results of that mitigation plan. So this is basically the practical example in which you can say that this is the column which I have been extracted in a US report, and that environmental engineers identify the environmental aspect, or you can say that the environmental impact, which is noise and visual impacts, and which comes by the activity known as tourism and the hotel sector. So what happened? Their environmental and the climate mitigation measures, which involves the community members during the whole project setting and designs, and they seek the input to ensure the setting and the selection of the technologies. And while you can say that ensuring the participation of the community, that adverse impact on the aesthetic and areas of the cultural, the historical values are avoided, are on the sensitive cultural historic areas. You can track the community complaints about the noise, which is also a very important step in the monitoring. And at the end, monitoring and reporting the frequency, there will be a beginning of the provision of the technical assistance with environmental impacts, which become the cause which become the cause due to the tourism. So next, I want to conclude the lecture. So basically, AIA is very important prior to the project, and the environmental risk assessments are very important to protect the environment and the human health. So by providing the decision makers with information about the potential environmental impacts of the development activities and promoting the stakeholders' engagement and mitigation measures, for instance, EIA will help to ensure that the economic growth is pursued in a manner that is environmental sustainable and the social responsible. So being the environmental scientist or being an environmental engineer, I would recommend that you people must have to do the EIA and IEE. And you can, if in any task, you are assigned that you have to write the EIA report. So you must follow the all these steps. Or if the task has been assigned that you have to write the environmental risk assessment, so you have to keep in mind all these points so you can write report by keeping the area of the project, or by keeping the health conditions of the residential area, or by so communicating with the local community. So here, I have the previous class. Please feel free to. So if you need anything, please do ask.
Just fine, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very ma'am. It was very informative session, and we really thank you, and we're looking forward. Thank you very much.
Um, Mr. Khan, Mr. Afrozuddin, you are joining us now. So
Yeah, I'm yes, yes. I'm late. Yeah.
may I know the cause why you are late today?
Your voice is breaking. No, I'm not prepared right now because I was engaged in some other activity, so I could not, prepare myself. I could not prepare the presentation and all. So hopefully next week I will try to present.
Okay, so Mr. Khan, you want to present on the next Friday, please.
Yeah, I will prepare the presentation and I will share with you. So once we'll agree, I will present it.
Yes, ma'am. Next week I will be also present at the same time, and
Confirm me here because I really want that my student participate maximum in the class. So please confirm here because you did not text in the group.
surely, ma'am. Next week I will be present before 5 minutes so that I can attend complete class with you, and inshallah I'll be in touch surely. Thank you very much, ma'am.
I'm sorry, there is a network issue. So, Mr. Khan, you joined late today, so I will give you the recap of today's class to you so that you will get an idea
Okay.
that what I taught in this class. So I'm just doing the recap just for you. Please be on time. Okay. So in this
Thank you.
class, we have discussed the this is the sixth module, and we have discussed the EIA process. What is EIA process? And what is environmental impact assessment? So, environmental impact assessment, which is basically conducted before the conduction of any project, and these type of assessments basically identify the impacts which has been produced on the public or through the environment. And for that, you have to collect the baseline data and you have to predict the hazards. And the next one is the you have to protect the social health, human health, and you have to protect the economic conditions as well. And these are the basic elements of the EIA. The EIA should be transparent and they involve the public, and they should be transparent. And all these points I have mentioned has been recorded in the lecture, so you can also listen the recording as well. So these are the three pillars of the sustainability which must be fulfilled in any environmental impact assessment. And these are the objective of the EIA, which is you have to evaluate, you have to inform the decision making, and you have to ensure the public and the stakeholders engagement, and you have to give a proper mitigation measures. These are the 9 steps. So, Mr. Khan, this slide is very important because by fulfilling or by completing this step, you will be able to write the AIA process, like screening, scoping, impact analysis, mitigation measures, reporting, review, decision making, monitoring, and compliances. And at the end, you have to do the post-project analysis. And all the step I have told the students that these are all the steps. So so you have to listen from the recorded lecture, and I have also explained the environmental risk assessments as well. So that's why I want to tell you guys that if you late join, you have to cope with the class by listening to the recordings. And today's lecture has been ended now. So Mr. Khan, if you need any help, you can ask me in the group regarding the today's lecture. But this lecture has also recorded, so you
Hmm.
can hear the recordings as
Okay.
well.
We'll go
And
through the recording. No issue.
Mr. Khan, I'm unable to hear you.
Yeah, it's okay. No issue. I will just go through the video, the one you have uploaded, and I will try to capture as much as I can from those videos. Can you hear me? Hello?
All right. Um, uh, if you want, I'm just telling you the highlights of the lecture. And if you face any ambiguity or if you face any difficulty, please ask to me.
Sure, sure.
Okay. I'm really happy that people are participating in my class, and now I'm going to end the lecture. And I've already told you that what are the mitigation measures. So here is the end of the lecture. I'm really thankful to you because I really like to communicate with you people. And here I want to sign off. Okay. So take care. Bye bye, all of you.